And now we're going to apply it to the other side. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm an Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 281. And we're going to be having problems today. So, left my mouse at home. So I'm trying to use a combination of touchpad, touching the screen, and this thing right here. And then on top of the whole thing, we have a software update, and I can already tell the camera's lagging me because when I go like that, it takes a half second before it actually does it on the other side. So we'll just rock and roll. So last week, we covered something called theory of mind, all right, and how you need to learn to take your brain and stick it inside the other team and see the world from their viewpoint. So, and ever since I made that comment, the whole universe has just been, through that reticular activation, just been pointing out to me how much of the world's problems is because we can't actually perceive what the other person is perceiving. So we are looking at the same problem, but now on the other side. What happens if you're the buyer? Okay, and what more importantly, what happens if you're the buyer's agent? Okay, and the buyer's agent, all right, has to control his clients and keep them from hurting themselves just as much as the seller's agent needs to control their clients and keep them from hurting themselves. All right, now remember, remember your fiduciary obligations, all right, your fiduciary duties, all right. And the first one, the old car that we use, because that's the acronym we use to remember this, is obedience. All right. And yes, I chafe at that. Ask anybody. All right. But when your client wants to do something, you have to be obedient to what their desires are. So if your client says, let's lowball them, you can sit there and spend all the time in the world explaining to them why that's a bad idea. All right. But you still have to put stuff down on paper. So the reason why we're having this conversation is, one, because it fills time and gives me an episode to talk about. But the other thing is that I've been writing offers that were not great because clients, let's just see if this works. It's not going to work, but let's do it. Okay, now that didn't work, but same property from the last episode. Another offer, but it's from the same real estate team as the first bad one. All right, and I knew they were from the same team, and I was like, okay, well, they must be passing that around in the sales meetings or something. But calls me up, sent an offer over, said, yeah, send it, and he casually drops that this is his first offer ever. Now remember, the previous one had been sitting there for 14 months that has never had a closing. This guy's been licensed for 2. And once again, he's writing an offer without a net and without adult supervision because his team lead, although his team lead is on the contract down underneath as a co-buyer agent so he can get paid, obviously isn't training his people. All right, so this offer comes in. I mean, I won't give you exact numbers or anything like that, but I can give you a percentage. All right. This offer comes in, and it was clean. I mean, they weren't asking for serious concessions or anything, but this one came in about $16,000 or 16% under ask. Easily, it's the lowest offer that we've seen. All right. I mean, we've gotten some bullshit investor cash offers. This is below that. All right. And you can sit there and you watch the offer come and you know immediately what the other side's doing. So, because remember, Starfleet battles. I don't know if I showed you guys this chart last time, all right? But I used to play a game where we sat there and we had to fill this chart out every freaking turn. Okay, so we're looking at an offer comes in, which is ridiculously low. All right. And I called the guy up and said, hey, question for you. Do you guys have team meetings and stuff like that? He goes, no, not really. Why? And I'm like, all right, because we already got an offer from one of your agents on your team. He goes, oh yeah, I heard something like that. I'm like, yeah, it's and we countered that one, and hers was much better than yours. He goes, yeah, it's but I tried to talk him out of it, and new agent, and they just really wanted to test this price point, and I'm like, okay, well, you've made your test. I'm going to go. This is what I'm telling him. I'm going to go to my seller, all right, and try to convince him to take the last counter offer that we sent the other person on your team and just send it to them. Send it to you. All right. And go, this is what this is our last counter offer that we took. And this one wasn't the winning one, by the way. We went with another one that was higher than that. All right. But they were willing to accept this. Let me send this over. He goes, oh yeah, that would be great, man. I'm saying, all right, keep an eye out for it. So write up the paperwork. And setting a counter offer over is a good, it's a certain amount of time for me. I mean, I'm doing paperwork. I mean, I'm working math out and this and that and the other thing, get it all set up and done. And I kick it over. And nighttime goes by, daytime's coming up. I'm out there on a listing appointment and stuff, and we get a little notification. Boom. Hey, so-and-so came back to us. And I look at it, and they countered our counter. And they still haven't beat the original offer from the other person on his team. And I'm like, all right, you're dead. That's done. So I call up my client and said, hey, they countered less than, And I said, you want me to tell them to F off? Except I used the bad word because he's a Marine. We can swear in the real world. YouTube, real estate, no, we're not allowed to do those things, all right? We have to watch our language. It's not professional. But sometimes the certain words are perfect for the situation, and be precise in your speech. All right, so anyways, you want me to tell him to F off? He goes, yeah, tell him to F off. All right, so I called the agent up and said, yeah, we're going to reject your offer. I could tell you exactly what my client said, but, that we can be professional here. You go, what'd they say? And he said, I'm supposed to tell you to fuck off. Oh, really? Yeah. You done pissed them off. All right. In fact, he says that if you guys want to come back with anything, the new price is $365. All right. More than what we were asking for before. Because he's that mad at you guys. He's not here to play games. He goes, all right, well, I'll let him know. And I say, hey, there's a couple other properties in that complex that you could take a run at. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get that price. And I'm pretty sure you're going to wind up overpaying. All right, but go for it. He goes, oh, yeah, well, one of our agents, I think, has a listing in that complex. And I was like, the one that's been sitting there for 121 days that was overpriced from the get-go? He didn't give me a reply back to that, so it's probably that one. So with that in mind, how do I write an offer? Because at the same time I'm dealing with this, I'm actually writing an offer for my clients. Right. And my clients are also that, well, this is, I wouldn't buy this house for this. I'd buy it at this. Okay. But are you sure they're going to sell it? All right. We can come with the meeting of mind. Remember, we're trying to come to what we call a meeting of the minds here. We're trying to define this space. All right. And you are clearly stating we're over here. I mean, look, we're not even on the screen. All right. But we talk until we can get something where, you feel like you have a possibility of them accepting the offer. The other thing that I let them do is I let them come up with a really ridiculous number because they thought it was cute. All right. They came up with an internet meme number and decided they wanted to throw that in. All right. So anyways, that one we just couldn't work out because of the conditions of the loan. We were trying to assume a VA loan and whatnot. It would have worked out really cool. But yeah, just not a thing. So, but how do we write an offer? Okay. Now, guys might remember the screen here. I got to use a touchpad. So if this gets a little delayed or whatnot, it's because of the touchpad. Okay. Guys, remember this screen over here where we were talking about the list price, of being $500,000, and buyer A, they came in at $490, but they only wanted 7% closing costs, was going to give a net of $446 to the seller. Meanwhile, buyer B came in with a higher price point, but they were coming back with 10% more or total closing costs. But it resulted in a net win for the seller because we came in $10,000 over, but then took it back on the other side. And remember, I talk about that a lot. Sellers focus on this. They don't focus so much on this. So if you want to get a great deal, you come down here and you work this number, because this is the emotion number. This is the number that hits them in their ego. And what the seller is thinking is greed and not being taken advantage of. The most important thing is they don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of. When you insult them by lowballing, they think this guy is trying to scam me out of my money. He is trying to steal my money. This person right here is trying to steal my money. And that's the emotion you trigger in the other side when you come in with a lowball offer. Now, wholesalers and investors, they steal money all day long. That's how they make their money. They steal it from others, right? And it's not really theft if they agree to it, right? But they are getting you to sell you something below market value. Good flippers make the money on the purchase of the property. Everything else is just improvement. Good flipper will buy a house at a price point. They could turn around and sell it in 3 months, not doing anything to it except shovel out the cat shed, maybe replace the carpets, maybe just strip the carpets out and cover the whole place in kills, right? And make money because they bought it below market value to begin with, right? But you, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are just wandering around out there trying to buy your first home, you don't get to play that game. Because the other thing investors are doing is they're paying cash. So if you think you're coming in with your loan and making investor offers, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen all day long. And what's amazing to me is this is not taught to agents out there, at least not at this team. All right, this team is not teaching their agents anything because they're out there floundering around like fish out of water, desperately trying to get a deal done. So this chart right here, 2 different ways to write an offer. Okay, this could literally be the same buyer with 2 different options. How do we want to play this? We can come in lower, all right, and have less of a, and the seller will be making less, or we can come in higher but ask for more on the back side. All right. So let's take the same property. Now you and me, we have just gone through and we've looked at this property. All right. And you're interested enough to write an offer on it. So what I do is this is where real estate agents work. Okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that these agents have never been taught how to do this because they didn't do the homework. All right, which means maybe their team lead, all right, hasn't bothered to teach them this stuff. Or he might have sat there and said it, and the little kids were like face first into their phones or whatever and weren't paying attention. Lord knows I've seen that happen before. So we have a $500,000 list price. This house is 40 days on the market. All right, so they've been on there for over a month. No price drops. Nothing in the history, never been off a contract, but we want to write an offer on it. All right. So I'm going to pull the comps on the property just as if it was my listing. I want to see where they are in reality. All right. Let's say they've had 3 closings, right? Comp A, Comp B, and Comp C. All right. These are the 3 that I'm looking at. These are like properties in the same area. All right. Comp A went for $490. All right, spent 30 days on the market. All right, and the MLS is telling you that it was a standard closing. There was no concessions giving, no closing cost concessions giving from the seller to the buyer. All right, so we can say 30 days on the market at $490. Boom. All right, the next one sold at $500, which is very interesting because that's the price that this thing is listed at. Notice days on market was 45. They took 2 more weeks to get that done, but there were seller concessions. All right? That's what the SC means at the bottom. And then over here we have Comp C. Comp C went in 5 days, right? But it also went for $475 cash. All right? So there's your cash discount property right there. Let's remember what a cash offer means. It means I don't have to worry about an appraisal. All right? It means that we can close quicker. We're done. In 10 days, we can be done and you can get on with the next chapter of your life. All right. And 5 days on the market, 10 days closing, that house sold in 15 days. And you, the seller, are walking on down the street, happy little camper with $475,000 in your pocket. All right. There's also one more property. This is the competition, right? This is the one that's active. That's a comp that's in your neighborhood. All right. So that one is at 515, 15,000 more than our subject property, and it's been on the market for 55 days. And if I look at that and I check the history on that and I realize, hey, they originally listed that thing at 525. Right? And then they dropped it down to 515 30 days ago. I know 2 things. One, we're coming up since they dropped their price 30 days ago. Now we're 25 days after that. There's a good chance in the next 5 days, we're going to be looking at another price drop. Right. But we know that 515, those houses do not sell at 515 because it's been out there for 45 days while 3 other properties have gone off the market. So, Mr. Buyer, you want this house at 500, right? Is it worth 500? I have 2 properties right there, Comp A and Comp B. There's your 500, but there was a seller concession. Sold in 45 days. Right. Comp A sold for less at 490, and I bet you're looking at that. All right. Sold for 30 days, no concessions whatsoever. That was a flat 490. Notice how that suddenly looks an awful lot like this. You think that was by accident? There's your 500 with the concessions. All right. Here's your other one. So we can look. And instead of sitting there going, okay, what's the list price? Okay, what's that price? What's the ego price? All right. How about we look between these 2 numbers and go, how do we structure this offer that gets the seller somewhere between 446 and 450? What we don't do is we don't offer them 475. And we sure as hell don't go below 475. That's the problem that's coming out of this team. They keep going way below anything that is sold in that complex for the last year and a half. Because they have clients who just, let's just see. The clients want a deal, but the problem is they want nice. If you want nice, you have to pay for nice. If you want a deal, 2 blocks to the south, there's a whole nother complex down there. You'll love it. Pay no attention to the swimming pool. Okay, it was just, yeah. And yeah, you don't get garages, but look at your price point. Okay, here's 5 other properties that you can get at that price point. All right. So Ray, what would you do? Well, right now it's really, I write, that offer that I'm going to make on this one. Looking at these numbers. Depends on what my buyer's position is. Do they need closing costs? Right? Is a little box checked in? Are they coming in with like an FHA loan? They got their 3.5 down and they need closing costs to get the rest of the way, maybe buy down the rate or something like that. Then we can sit there and go, okay, we're going to look at the closing cost deal. All right, let's go ahead and offer them 5 and then we'll take it back on the back end. All right. I would not go over the list price. There's no reason to. Okay. You could come in, an aggressive offer on something like that would be go 490 with the closing costs and expect them to counter back. All right. That's also a conversation you have with the other side, with the other agent on the other side. And you really sell a deal. Hey, they like the place. They qualify for it. They do need closing costs. All right. And maybe even sort of split the difference. And let's go 495. We see you got one at 490. We see you got one at 500. I'm not paying attention to the cash one. You got an active out there floating around at 515. might be in a position where they'll do a price drop. If we had to really get serious closing costs, we might be able to get them out of that one. All right. Also hoping on the back end that when the appraisal kicks in, the appraisal is going to say that is not a 515 house. That's a 495 house. What were you thinking? Makes sense? And good appraisers will not use a cash deal as a comp. So I hope that just sort of explains to you a little bit about, this is how we structure making an offer. All right, hold on for a second. And then every once in a while you have a phone call with an agent that's actually fun. So I might just be getting old and crotchety, right? But I'm starting to enjoy the presence of people over the age of a fetus, unlike all the ones we got rolling around in real estate right now. So, yeah. So that's how that's how you structure. You got to sit there and go, even when you're on the buyer side, what is the numbers the seller's going to be looking at? What are they going to be thinking? Right? And you can find that in a lot of places. All right. You look at the history on the MLS. How many times have they been under contract? Have they been under contract at all? Are you looking at a listing that has 2 prior listings from the same owner and they kept canceling out after 100, or expiring after 180 days? Does a property look overpriced? All right. If it's overpriced and they have 2 cancellations, that's not a real seller. That's a dreamer. They're just sitting there hoping sooner or later somebody. All right. I've told you guys this story before. I tell it again because I still encounter it. There are people out there who just honestly think that there's a buyer for every property at any price out there. And yeah, it happened once in Indiana because a guy went to work for Microsoft in the 1970s, came home a billionaire, and decided he wanted to buy his grandmother's old house. It just happened to be on sale at a ridiculously high price, and he was a millionaire, and he picked it up. All right? That doesn't happen to you, okay? You're a normie, right? It's amazing how many times people take one example, one offbeat, crazy example, and they're like, so you're saying I got a chance? And I understand enough about probability that say if you say you have a chance, yeah, but it might be a 6 sigma, kind of chance. So anyway, anybody who's heard me have this rant when I was drunk knows exactly the next thing that I say right there. So a couple of you guys just chuckled. The rest of you guys can just ask me when you see me next. All right. So other thing you want to look at is what's going on in the market at that immediate moment. All right. So let's go over the numbers really, really quick, and then we'll close this out. This is the first time I've been in the office all week, and boss is over there wanting to talk to me about stuff. So these are numbers for June 24th, 2026. Actives this week are 24,801, down 104 from last week. Our new listings are 1,937, down 200. Contracts were at 2,119, down 117, and our closings were 1,570. Coming soon to MLS near you is 537 new listings, and I just suddenly realized I did not bother to look up on Cromford to see what the new numbers are. So, but last week their demand was 105, supply was 85.7, and Cromford report number was 81.6. Based on what I'm looking at here with the actives coming down and the contracts coming down, if anything, it's probably gotten a little bit worse, right? So that's what happens when I'm rushing. So long story short, theory of mind, Google it, look it up, learn it, practice it. All right. Start thinking of other people out there as human beings and not just NPCs in your fantasy role playing where you're going out there doing as a 5th level accountant playing houses and humans. All right. People on the other side of the transaction are real. They're real people. They have their own thoughts, needs, desires, hopes, and all that other good stuff, right? And you're walking around thinking you have main character energy, that the entire world is a movie and you are the principal star. I almost said scar. That's like, yeah. Principal star made up of scars. All right. And you keep forgetting that the other side, no, it's their movie. and you're a bit player, right? You don't even get dialogue because you're never going to be seen by this person. You're just the person who's trying to rip them off. You're the one trying to take advantage of them. And being taken advantage of is an emotion, an experience that every human being walking this planet has had. Not a lot of human beings can say they've ever bought and sold property before. All right, but they've all felt like they've been taken advantage of, hoodwinked, bamboozled, scammed. And you're coming down, and you might as well be wearing a freaking zoot suit with a your pocket watch going like this, opening up, going, "Hey kid, you want to buy dirty magazine?" That's the way you look at to the other side when you come in with a low ball, a stupid low ball offer. Because your average seller, 30 days on the market, he's already gotten 3 of those. We call them wholesalers. And they come up sliming up out of the sewer and stuff like that. Right? And you're just doing the same thing. Except for some reason, you suckered some brand new real estate agent who thought this was going to be easy into buying that line of thinking. And if you're that real estate agent, oh my freaking God, give me a call. Heather King's starting a new agent training down at Pioneer Title. Y'all need it. All right. I don't know what your broker's doing for you, but I know you don't have one. I know you got a brokerage. I know you got a team lead who's got his hand out, ripping you off, taking your hard-earned money, and not giving anything back in return. Or keep doing what you're going to do. All right. Ma'am, you got 6 more months, and then you don't have to worry about being a real estate agent anymore. I would not suggest you renew. If you go 2 years without any closing whatsoever, don't renew. This isn't for you. You, young man, 2 months in, good luck. I hope you're actually watching this thing, but you're probably not. Because I ain't sure as hell ain't going to send this to you. Maybe one of your friends will, "Hey, dude, you should have listened to this guy." You go, "Hey, that's that asshole who made me feel small. And I really hope I didn't do that." But still, you guys got a lot to learn. All right. We all have a lot to learn. All right. When you stop learning, you start dying. All right. And what else can you do? Sit there, watch children or pets around water. You're the kind of person who would drive into something flooded. Probably. All right. You don't even know what a circle is because you haven't either listened to my podcast or come into any of my training. Right? God, I feel sorry for your mother. But for the rest of you, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys all later.